I'm Ray and this is TinyTableGames. Thank you for clicking on the video. Like and subscribe if you haven't already to help my channel grow. And thank you for just watching in general. I hope you've checked out some of my other stuff as I work through all the games I haven't played that are on my shelf and paint all the miniatures that are still unpainted. Today though is a little bit different. Today I'm going to explain to you why these aren't as good as these. In my opinion, why Lorcana is better than Magic the Gathering. So first, a tiny bit of background. I've played Magic the Gathering since the game came out. In fact, I was working in comic book shops when the game came out, so obviously we are introduced to it extremely early. Back in the day when you think back to yourself, man, those alpha boxes were not very expensive. Maybe I should have kept a few around, and then I could like retire already, but such as it goes. In any case, by the time Fallen Empires came out, everybody thought the game was going to die anyway because they flooded the market, but that's neither here nor there. The point is, I've played Magic for a long time, done the DCI tournament thing, been a judge, blah, 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 Friday Night Magic, you name it. So I've got a lot of experience with it, though I haven't played as much lately. I still play Magic the Gathering Arena, which is always interesting. And while I hadn't purchased any cards in a while, I couldn't resist the Final Fantasy theme, because who doesn't like Sephiroth and Cloud and all that good stuff. But while I was playing it and getting back into it with this new set, both in person and on Arena, it made me reflect about how I feel about the game over all these years compared to Lorcana. And startlingly, I concluded, at first I thought, Lorcana, it's such a little kid's game. You know, I like Disney a lot, go to the parks, all that stuff, but it doesn't seem like it's that interesting. But the more I played it, it is not uninteresting. In fact, I like it better than Magic, and I'm going to tell you why. So, first off, in Lorcana, your goal as an Illumineer, which is just kind of funny, is to get to 20 lore. You're collecting lore using shadows and whatnot of characters from Disney lore. Magic the Gathering, kill your opponent. So kind of a different mood right from the start, which of course is expected, Disney versus not Disney. I've got no problem with either. Obviously I play a ton of war games, but the slightly less hyper-aggressive in-your-face thing is kind of nice once in a while. Even though you're still highly competitive in Lorcana, you're not actively trying to clobber your opponent quite so much. So I give that point to Lorcana over Magic the Gathering for me personally. For you, it might be the opposite. You might have had a terrible day and you really want to use your red-white speed deck to just beat the fool out of somebody else and leave them crying in the corner while you move on to the next round. So, the next thing, because I have a list, is all of the stuff in Lorcana comes basically straight out of the Disney movies or Disney cartoons, and that's about it. They have bounded their lore on all things Disney. They have not yet broken out into anything like their additional properties that Disney has bought in recent years, aka LucasArts or anything like that. But they've kept that as a separate line, probably for contractual reasons, for things like Star Wars Unlimited and stuff like that. But Lorcana has locked themselves into, if you will, the Disney Parks type lore with the classic Fab Five characters, Mickey, Minnie, Donald, Daisy, etc. Goofy, if you want to count him, Creeper. But meanwhile, Magic originally didn't really have lore outside of you're a wizard and you're in a weird land and summon creatures and beat the crap out of the other guy or gal. But as time went by and they had to invent new sets and come up with new reasons, they added new lands and Dominera and yada da da. And honestly, it was getting a little stale, and everybody knew it was getting a little stale, which is why they kind of branched out over time, and then they did weird things like Magic Unglued, which was crazy and kind of funny, but it poked fun at itself, which was pretty neat, but was not a huge seller nonetheless. Again, one of those things where you're like, man, I wish I'd kept a box of those. So, it's not just, anyway, regrets. So, over time though, while Lorcana is bound with Disney, as you can see from, you know, the Final Fantasy set, the Spacefaring set, the SpongeBob expansion, and all that other stuff, yeah, Magic's gone in all sorts of directions now. You can play old Western themes, you name it. Is that great? I mean, it's different. Does it change the game? Kinda. There's some different rules and of course styles of play that go with it, but that's a separate category. But yeah, so I gotta give the bounded lore, to me, Lorcana gets the win just because as amusing as it can be to have Sephiroth fight a team of, I don't know, people from Bikini Bottom, that's just not my thing. That's a little too much lore mixing for me, I'm afraid. Move along. So that's 2 in favor of Lorcana. 3, mana shorts and mana floods. In Lorcana, you don't get them. I don't know that you need to say any more than that. If you've ever experienced a mana flood or a mana short, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, you've never played Magic the Gathering, and I'm not sure why you're watching this video, but thank you, I'm glad you are. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It's super frustrating if you've ever been in a tournament and you've hit a mana short or a mana flood. If you have a kind opponent, they'll still stomp you into the ground, but they'll look real sad for you while they do it. Because everybody's been there and they know how it feels, and it doesn't matter how cool and how awesome your deck is. If you get a bad shuffle and that one color of mana that you need is like 18 cards down, you're never going to get there. So Lorcana is mechanically superior to Magic the Gathering in that you do not have single dedicated cards that you must have in your deck mixed in to make sure that you can do an activity on your turn. Rather, they mix the activity or mana, or ink in the case of Lorcana, into every card, just about, with a few exceptions, so that you make the choice of, do I want to use this to power other cards and effectively remove it from the game and use it to power everything else, or do I want to keep its effect and use something else? That gives you a lot more choices early in the game than Magic will ever give you. And I love that about it. And it creates a different mentality when you're deck building, because you do not always have to do the scientific bell curve of, well, let's see, how many 1-point cards do I have? How many 2-point, 3-point? What's my build rate compared to my mana ratio? You don't need a slide rule for Lorcana. So Lorcana wins there, also in the mechanic stability in early game and mid game, and overall ability to build decks that do not require quite so much science and statistical probabilities and draw theory and things like that. If you're into that, that's fantastic. But I don't want to feel like I'm doing work when I'm playing the game necessarily. So for me, Lorcana wins there too. Art. I like Disney art. There's some fantastic art in Magic the Gathering. There's also some really terrible art. So in some art you just stare at it and you're like, what? So for me, I like the Disney art better on Lorcana than pretty much any of the art in Magic the Gathering. Not to take anything away from it, they have a very specific art style, and if you're down with that, that's great. Art is art. You like what you like. There's nothing wrong with that. So that's kind of just a point I'm mentioning, but isn't really a factor in this, because everybody's taste in art's different. And who knows, the next Magic set might come out and I'll be like, wow, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. Probably not, but you never know. And don't even get me started on how Wizards of the Coast screwed their artists years ago, but regardless. So let's see. The other thing that makes me like Lorcana better than Magic the Gathering is the mechanics of the rules. The number of times you get into, and it's better now, I'd say, than it used to be over years and years and years and years and years of trying to fix the rule book. But the timing, the stack, what supersedes what counteracts what, partially, that's just because there's such a huge quantity of cards. I mean, that's kind of why they declared, or rather created the different leagues of play of Standard or Legacy or whatever, and also to make you buy more cards. Because if everybody had like 5 suitcases full of cards, they aren't unlikely to buy more unless you give them a reason to. Hence why most tournaments are Standard. So you don't really have that problem in Lorcana. Yes, there's not nearly as many cards as there are in Magic the Gathering right now, although there's enough that you could say it's equivalent to the Standard set in Magic right now. But the mechanics of how the cards work is much simpler, partially because you're not trying to kill your opponent, you're trying to gather lore, and the effects that you can have versus the effects your opponent can have on your turn are such that they do not require such significant timing rules that Magic deals with. And that's wonderful because it gets tiresome. And once again, I don't really want to need an abacus or a slide rule or anything else, or a whiteboard with some guy talking about aliens and red string between all the things to figure out what my play is for that turn. So, finally, Lorcana tournaments are a lot more fun for me than Magic the Gathering tournaments. Now, some of that might just be because I've been to years and years and years of Magic the Gathering tournaments, and I've seen all sorts of behavior, and a lot of it was not thrilling. But at least with Lorcana, much like Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon, who also have absolutely terrible players, make no mistake, generally, people are a bit more relaxed and less likely to get deeply personally offended, in my personal experience, than in playing Magic the Gathering in tournaments. Now, that may just be because the payoff for Magic the Gathering tournaments are significantly better than Lorcana tournaments, if you succeeded in opening and all that sort of thing. At least, perhaps if Ravensburg ever starts having $50,000 prizes for playing Lorcana, the sentiment of players may change. You never know. But in any case, there you have it. That's why I personally think Lorcana is a superior game to Magic the Gathering. I like the theme, I like the enclosed lore rather than just all over the hemisphere or all over the galaxy, if you will. The mechanics of the game are simply better than Magic the Gathering. They're smoother, you're less likely to get screwed over just by a bad deck shuffle. You have more choices when you're building your deck, and more methods of making interesting things happen without requiring quite so much effort into the mathematical probabilities of how often you're going to draw a particular card based on a 60-card deck or a 40-card deck if you're using a booster sealed pack. Anyway, I've been through all that, don't care for it anymore. And all the rules and the stack and the timing and all that, significantly better with Lorcana than it ever was with Magic the Gathering, as of last night when I last played. So, there you have it. I'll bet you disagree, or maybe you don't. Put it in the comments. Tell me how I'm wrong. Tell me how I'm right. Tell me what you think or what your favorite set is. Don't say Fallen Empires. In any case, I am Ray. This is TinyTableGames. Thank you very much for watching and listening to me rant about random stuff that an aging gamer likes to talk about. I'll catch you next time.